Episode 5 of the YN podcast. Conor Malone, I'm titling as the world's greatest learner for a good few reasons, which you'll see throughout this episode. He's an absolute pleasure to work with, and I've had the joy of having him as a client for the last 12 months, to the point where I sat down with him not too long before this podcast, and I was like, I need to get you on the podcast, and here's why. The way in which he takes in information, the way in which he applies information and takes action on it is nothing short of spectacular. And I do believe that a lot of his philosophies behind learning is something that he's adopted from so many different people. And you'll hear him within the podcast pulling quotes out of thin air and quotes that have changed his life, books that have changed his life, the ways of learning that have changed his life. And he also spoke a lot about his experience at school and how he wasn't the greatest learner in that environment. We should give anyone else listening to this at the moment that didn't enjoy school a reason to go on and listen to the rest of this podcast, because it's nothing short of spectacular. So enjoy. If you're on YouTube, leave a like and subscribe. And also if you're on Spotify, make sure you follow, ring the bell, because we've got episodes rolling out every 2 weeks. Make sure you tag us on Instagram, drop us a DM with any of your best parts and the best moments that you've took away and applied into your day-to-day life, and have the most incredible day. World's Greatest Learner, episode 5. How to become powerful with knowledge is what the title that we're going with, mate. Something big to live up to be fair.
Very big, but as Dale Carnegie once said, give someone a fine reputation to live up to.
Absolutely,
they excel. Mate. So yeah, looking forward to it. Excited.
Couldn't agree more, mate. And when it comes to in terms of the number of books that you've read at the moment, that's not necessarily a reflection of the world's greatest learner, but in terms of when I see you a decade from now,
yes,
the amount of books that you would have read or listened to, the amount of notes and quotes and everything that you've got, I actually think it might be scary to bump into you in a decade, mate, to be fair. But in terms of becoming an incredible learner, it's not necessarily about the reading all the time. You can read as much as you want, but in terms of actually applying it, you've got notes laid out on your phone.
Yep.
You document quotes, you document thoughts, you document page numbers,
everything
from start to finish, mate.
Yep.
Where did that kind of obsession actually stem from?
Do you know, it's hard to pinpoint, but when I reflect on it now, I think it's just as I grew older, I found out I was a bit of a critical thinker. So everything I looked into, I wanted to expand upon. I wanted to know why something worked or why this happened. So when I started reading, it was a bit, to me, why should I just read and just leave it there? Because it goes out of your mind. Everybody reads and thinks they should remember everything, but that's not going to happen. So you need to take notes so I can refer back to them.
Yep.
And once I started doing that, it started like everything, small steps, and now it's huge. In terms of, if you look at my notes on my phone, they're all structured, but there's an abundance of quotes, an abundance of knowledge in my notes at my fingertips. And if I hadn't done that, so much would have went out of my mind and I'll never be able to recall it. Whereas now, all I need to do, search it in, and it's there.
You ever read a book twice?
Not yet. I plan on, but no, I live by one thing I heard, and I can't remember, it's not so much a quote, but it's essentially there'll be maybe 100 books you'll read in your lifetime that you should continue to reread.
Yeah.
And I find that I'm kind of not looking for those 100 books. I'll continue to learn. Once I get to a stage where I feel right, everything's kind of maybe repeating itself quite a bit, then I'll start to reread them. But it's definitely something I really want to do, because there's things, it doesn't matter how many times you reread a book, you're going to look at it differently, whatever point you're at in your life. So you're going to get more from it. So it's definitely something I'm going to need to do at some point.
Absolutely, man. And the reason why I was asking that is because when I looked back I've read Secrets of the Millionaire Mind 3 times, and each time that I read it, there's a part in it that I realise that I'm doing what they've taught me, but I never ever associated it with that book. And it becomes almost like a level of your programming that you believe that you were just born that way, but it wasn't. It's something that you've adopted.
Exactly. It's something you pick up. I'm the exact same things that I've kind of went back and looked back on notes and whatnot. I'm like, wow, I've been doing that. Not even knowing. Maybe you don't know what it's called, or if it's a principle or a law. You don't know what it is, but you've been doing it, and you've been doing it because you're picking up on small things. So it's cool to see that. You go back and realise there's method behind it, what you've been doing.
What was your environment that made you realise that you were a critical thinker?
That's a good question. I would say as soon as I started to expose myself to people that were learning as well and how they learned, and then I'm thinking, well, I do that. Or once I started listening to maybe entrepreneurs, investors and stuff, and I'm like, right, okay, so I've read this book, this is what I do. I'm like, well, I do that. That's quite strange. And I didn't know what critical thinking was. And I stumbled across it one day. It was critical thinking can mean a few different things, but it was a definition of whatever I read. I was like, wow, that's me. with whatever I want to learn, I don't just want to learn the base facts. I want to delve deeper and understand how that works. It started with personal training, with anatomy and physiology, something I was very passionate about. Then when I started getting into investing, it was into that, how the markets move. It just wasn't as simple for me as, okay, I put my money away in this amount of years, it's going to be this. I think, okay, why is that going to happen? What makes the market move? What is going to do this for me? Do you know, it was just an interest, just finding kind of how interested I was in certain things, and it delved into that, really.
Absolutely, and you kind of touched on some of the things that you became obsessed about in terms of, so as like Conor Malone, you have a clothing brand, you're a personal trainer, you also invest, you do a lot of things in it.
Self-development, essentially, and I'm not big on the word, but I feel that everybody should naturally want to develop themselves. But if I was to put it into a bracket of everything I do on a day-to-day basis, it would be self-development, whether that's from a financial perspective or a mindset perspective or just or work-based. There's always something to develop.
So do you feel like that ever consumes you?
At times, but then that's where self-awareness comes in, isn't it? So that's where self-awareness comes in, and you need to understand, right, I'm kind of overworking myself here, or am I delving too deep into something? Is there kind of diminishing returns here? So being aware of when that happens is critical. It's so important.
The level of self-awareness is something that we, in order to actually develop it, how would you advise anyone to develop a level of self-awareness?
Many things. It's strange because, like, how do you become self-aware if you're not sure of what self-awareness is? Do you know what I mean? So it's really about kind of journaling. People find it strange, like, why would I write down my thoughts or even record myself and things like that? But I do both of those. I have different types of journals. I'll record my thoughts, my feelings, my emotions. Not all the time. These things I won't say, right, this week I need to journal my emotions. But every so on, I'll feel that and I'll think, right, I better journal this, write down a bit about it. Why? Because I need to understand it. You need to understand your emotions, because that's what controls you. It controls how you act, your emotions, whatever emotion you're feeling. If you're feeling angry, why? Just ask yourself why. That's all it is. It's asking yourself why. Write it down, record yourself, anything like that. It doesn't need to be structured. You do it once a week, twice a week, just whenever you feel it, write it down. Simple as that. Journal it. So,
it's an amazing piece of advice, mate. I was thinking about what you were saying there in terms of what I've applied to this week in terms of small bit overwhelm and stuff like that. What I used to apply to that was something that Paula advised to me, which was the BIC model, which is behavior, impact, consequences, and just documenting, in terms of breaking that down for anyone that doesn't know what it is, the behavior or the said thing that is causing you to feel a certain way. Which for me, like, I was feeling overwhelmed, so I documented a bunch of things that were, quote unquote, I believe were the root of the problem. And then the impact that it's having on me, and then the consequences for everyone else around me. And just breaking it down into those portions. And once you actually, like, look at, I think that comes from a level of, like, another thing I was learning about today is that, or this weekend we spoke about on the phone, the bell curve.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, when you're I feel like the top level of high performance comes from being so self-aware that it's actually, like, just mental.
Every single thing you do comes down to self-awareness, like how you perform, everything. It's something we're not taught. I didn't know what self-awareness was until maybe 2 years ago. Because again, if you're not aware of it, how can you do it? How can you practice it? How can you become more aware about your emotions and things? But just like I just said, it's what impacts everything. You're not taught at school, okay, we need to be self-aware. See, if you get angry at school, if you're badly behaved, you're disciplined, you're not told, right, this is what it is, it's an emotion. This is how you can control that emotion. Obviously, when you're immature, you're young, that's going to be hard to kind of listen to that, but there's methods to teaching it to children, to everybody. So yeah, it's making people more aware of what it is and how they can work on it is really important.
And in school, were you a great learner?
No. And it's almost the typical thing where entrepreneurs are like, oh, got terrible qualifications and whatnot. That was me, but I don't think about it. School was great. I loved school socially. But in school, no, I wasn't a good learner. I wasn't passionate. I didn't have the same habits I have now. I didn't study. I didn't know how to study until I found something I was passionate about. So I didn't know how to learn. Essentially, I just wasn't obsessed with school. So I didn't learn the way that others tend to learn. I didn't memorize things well. So no, I wasn't great at school, but I did enjoy it. That's one thing I'll say, especially socially. I built loads of good skills through school. And I enjoyed it. So yeah, but no, I wasn't a great learner at all.
And that's something that most people associate learning with school.
Yeah.
And I think majority of entrepreneurs that we spend time with, I don't think any of them really. I think the only person I know that's actually good academically is Andrew Ellis.
I was about to say that. I knew it as soon as that guy's just wow. Yeah, it's just some people like that. Some people are good from the get go. But obviously the type of work that it took to get there, it obviously comes from your family as well. My family were never big on pushing me, and not in a bad way at all. They were I've an amazing family and always been good, but they were never big on pushing me to study. So I never learned to study through my family. At school, they don't really teach you how to study. They just say, right, take this home and learn it. So it wasn't something I really picked up on very well. But again, it's just I was just young, naive, just wasn't interested. That was it. Lack of passion towards anything I was learning about.
How would you structure learning in a school environment?
If I had to restructure the kind of school system, and
Not necessarily as deep as that, but in terms of like when you think about when you were there as
if
a
I had
kid.
to go back now,
Like how?
yeah, right, okay. So first of all, I would understand what's my goal here. What do I want from school? Like obviously they tell you this is what you should get. Now what do I want? What do I need?
Yeah.
Do I need to get into university? Do I want to be an accountant? Great. What do I need? I need a national hire in finance. Great. I'll delve deeper into finance. Get this, blah blah blah. Anything else that wasn't so important? Nah.
Yeah.
Go straight in on what you need. I would like everything would be revolve around them. Whatever I need, that's where my focus would go. I wouldn't be like, okay, well I need to do well in science. I need to do well in PE. I need to do well in this. Nope. Focus on what I need to do, and that's how I would structure it. I would pick out the things I need and focus on them.
How important is it, like having an actual outcome in mind?
Oh, mega! Because what is it they say? It's like if there's no target, what can you achieve with no target? Some people, very rarely people fall into things, but you need some form of target. It doesn't need to be something, right, this is exactly what I want in life, or this is what I want to do as a job, but have a rough target, have some to aim for. Because then motivation's going to dip. If you have something you have to aim for, and you achieve anything in relation to that, that's success, that's motivation, and you're going to do better at anything. So yeah, it's mega important to have a target, which is what you would have by saying, right, I'm going to focus on these two things. I need this higher. How can I get there?
Yeah.
So yeah, you'd have a target in place.
What would be your attitude towards motivation?
Motivation diminishes.
Yeah.
It's never permanent. People look at people like David Goggins, who's the most motivational man on the planet. He is to us. He's not the most motivated person on the planet. He's the most disciplined person on the planet. It's like when we've spoken about this before with inspiration. Inspiration is perishable, meaning that it doesn't last forever. If you feel particularly inspired by something or motivated, it's the same context. Act on it immediately, as Naval says. Act on it because it will diminish. So having something that can maybe spark that motivation, great. Whether that's videos, I know you do it. You have certain videos you watch. I don't tend to find that. I tend to find that if I get into a flow state by doing things that I enjoy, I tend to become motivated by that. Small tasks, I become motivated once I complete a task, things like that. So I think it's just understanding that motivation doesn't come naturally. Nobody wakes up at 5:30 in the morning, thinks, right, let's go get it. People wake up maybe half an hour later, but most of the time they don't.
When you think about, you spoke about flow state, which is the first time that I heard about flow state was with, not necessarily I'd heard it multiple times, but in terms of actual explanation behind it was Jimmy Carr's episode with Stephen Bartlett. When he speaks about the flow state. You know, listen to it now. No. It's an incredible podcast, mate. Just simply because it's more like speaks about like how he just went all in on comedy and being a comedian and stuff like that. But the reason why is because when he stood on that stage, from the first word that he said to the last word, it was like instant, just done.
Well, the book I'm reading just now is Flow.
Is it?
It's called Flow. It's about that state of flow. That time, that activity you're doing when time just passes by. You have no sense of time. That's essentially a flow state. It's a sense of enjoyment. Whereas you might have felt this before. A lot of my friends, a lot of everybody I know, they used to say, right, when you play football, you forget about everything. And it's true. It's because something you're passionate about. There's a skill behind it. So what I used to do is, let's say you'd played a 1-2, you'd done something nice, whatever, you instantly get your mind sharpens. You're in that flow state, and you're like, wow, that's 2 hours gone by. That's a flow state. And time just seems to pass by. So it's very important to find those activities which get you in that flow state. Like you just said, with Jimmy Carr, that was comedy. He went full in on that.
It was one of the things that, like, Gino, Josh Gianelli and Liam Boyce both speak about in terms of football for them as their form of meditation almost, where it, like, when they step out on that pitch, nothing else even enters the mind.
Yeah, those boys have almost, well, obviously they have a high level of skill with football, so that almost could enhance their flow state.
Yeah.
Because if you're not very good at football and you're stumbling over, blah, 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 you might get disrupted, you might get angry. Whereas I assume when they're in, well, from what I've heard from both of them, when they're on the pitch, they're laser focused.
Yeah.
They're in that flow state, and that's where the best performance comes from. That's where the best outcomes come from being in that state of flow.
What was your state of flow growing up?
Football, to take my mind away from things. I was never play for teams and things like that, but all me, my friends and whatnot would play every week, multiple times, every day after school. You play, that would get me in that flow state. Gaming, I suppose. Time flies by. But I'll tell you what, right? Both of those things have something in common, and there's a community around it. When I played games, I played with people, and it was people I liked. When I played football, I played with people I liked. There was community behind it. Community drives so many positive emotions. So you're surrounding yourself with people that you enjoy to be around. So yeah, I would say that just things that I enjoyed. It was the people kind of done that for me.
Would you say you're an extrovert?
Yeah, big time. Yeah, when we spoke about that, the coins, like when I work. So I work as a personal trainer. I work at 6 a.m. Most mornings I start at 6. I might have clients through to 9 or 10. Okay, then I go home and I also work. I train. I go home and I work. I work on adenosine, I work on my personal development, whatever. And then I come back in at night. And most people would come back drained, whatever. I'm quite a charismatic individual. So when I come back, I feel energized the more people I see. Do you know, we spoke about that with the coins. The more people I meet, the more I thrive. Whereas if I was maybe in isolation towards the end of the night, maybe it would start to diminish. But because I'm constantly surrounded by people at night, I thrive in that environment. So I'm very much an extrovert.
Yeah. And in terms of, because for me, it would definitely be the opposite.
Yeah.
And by the time, when I think about when I'm most energized or at least activating a flow state, yes, in gaming, yes. I think that was probably one of the only things that didn't make sense for me because when it came to gaming, I very much, I mean, you're literally like competitively anyway, you're playing with the same players every day for like 6 hours. So I would go to school, for example, and then I'd come back and then I'd play for 6 to like 8 hours. I don't know what it actually is in terms of like maybe something to research, but when it comes to like the introvert aspect of that, is it because it's not genuine like
interaction?
Yeah.
You can't physically, there's no...
You're just talking.
Possibly.
Because I didn't feel that. Like when I started thinking about when I used to feel tired from gaming, it was just that I'd played like 14 hours. Like it wasn't actually like, it wasn't anything to do with the engagement aspect. I didn't go off and then do things myself like I do now, where it's like when I start to get tired, I just go off and just do my own thing, and that usually re-energizes me and allows me to enter a flow state. Whereas in gaming, it wasn't like, there was only one thing that I used to do, which was when I used to compete for event, like prepare for events, which was like shoot 1,000 bots a day. So that was usually after practice. So practice would operate from like after school, like 4 until about 9, 10. And then shoot 1,000 bots, which would always take me about like 75 to 90 minutes.
Really?
And I'd just put music on it and just, that was like my, because of the experience I had at my first ever COD event where I didn't play up to my capabilities, it was like, that is never happening ever again.
Yes.
So as a result, that 1,000 bots a day was like my, okay, if I do this every day, then that will never happen. And as a result, it's like when we think about the extreme ownership, that was me taking extreme ownership for making sure that I was going to perform at the level I had to, which helped me massively.
But we'll see something you mentioned there. You mentioned how you would go away and you would take time to yourself. Now, people don't do that.
Yeah.
People don't. If you want to re-enter a state of flow, it can't last forever. You need to understand how to go away and recharge. What recharges you? Is it going away? Is it meditating? For me, it can be like literally, and I don't mean people think meditating, oh, you sit here and you do this, whatever. Literally sit and go through your thoughts. You don't need to do fancy breathing. You just need to sit there, isolated, with your thoughts. That's it. And that can be enough to recharge you, to go out. You control your emotions. Yeah, breathing can help. Controlling your emotions start to come back down, and then you can go at things with a level head. And people don't have that. People don't have something. They constantly work all day and they get stressed out and they overload. But it's me and you, we have something now, and you just explained that you've done it there, to go away and do. So it could be journaling, could be meditating, could be playing a game, could be anything. I think more people have to have that. Figure out something that recharges them.
you ever feel like you reflect on, because as you were speaking there, I was reflecting on my childhood before
Mm-hmm.
business and all that, because I
Yes.
didn't come from a family of business or
Yeah.
entrepreneurship or
Yeah.
nothing like that.
Yeah.
And when I think about like my dad,
Uh-huh.
he literally would come home, get a can of Terence,
Yeah.
and just sit on the couch and watch
Wow.
whatever
Yeah.
TV,
Whatever.
or like he had hobbies, but they were like, in terms of like when he was done,
Yes.
like just done,
He was.
he'd just sit on the couch.
I don't mean to digress, but what a lot of people feel with that is what you've just explained there. That's not a good thing. Like, you don't gain any motivation from that. But
Mm.
one thing you can take away from that is, okay, you've seen what that does.
Yeah.
Now you're in your early 20s. Most people will go and do that later in life. They'll go
Yeah.
home for work, they'll grab a beer, they'll sit down, and you know how that ends up.
Yeah.
You know that firsthand. You've experienced that's deep inside you.
Yeah.
Like, that's impacted you.
Yeah.
So now you've seen that happen. That's something to be grateful for. Do
Mm.
you know what I mean? So many people would look on that as a negative experience. That's something
Yeah.
that you can be grateful for and take that into the future.
Yeah, for sure, man. And in terms of, there was one of the things that when on the topic of school, when we're looking at like say an individual believes that their books, reading, listening to books or anything like that,
Mhm.
I definitely felt like it was not necessarily people were conforming, but because people had such a negative attitude towards school,
Yeah.
anything that was to do with learning or
Yeah.
reading, they definitely resisted against it.
Or even business. Anything.
Yeah,
It comes from jealousy and it's understanding. But that's where self-awareness comes in. Not
Yeah.
just self-awareness, awareness of others, understanding emotions. Like, so let's say when I started my business, I didn't like, nobody said to me, ha ha ha, this, that, what, the other. I'm sure maybe behind my back they might have done. Doesn't
Yeah.
impact me. But if they had, I would have been in a state to understand, right, that's coming from jealousy.
Mm.
People don't, what is it, Dale Carnegie says actually, nobody ever kicks a dead dog. And that sounds a bit strange, right? What does that mean? They get nothing out of it, okay? See, if you're thriving, they get something from angering you.
Yeah.
So people are attacking you for a reason.
Yeah.
If people are jealous and things like that, that's for a reason. You're doing something right.
Did you ever? I know you said you hadn't really had anything where people had said anything to you, but did
Mhm.
you ever get wind of anything that had been said about you starting a business or?
I had very rarely sly comments and things that were intended as a joke, but you know it comes from a
Yeah.
place of jealousy, and that's something I just, it doesn't bother me at all. Nothing bad, no. I've always been somebody, I don't speak about things. See, adenosine, right? When I launched my clothing brand, I spent almost a year going over things, like getting different manufacturers, finding how to create a good product, how to create the brand, so many things, the website, everything behind it, loads of things. And then I didn't tell, I maybe told 6 people. It was like, but that includes my mum, my dad, because they were like, what are these big boxes coming in? Why do you
Yeah.
keep getting all these t-shirts?
Yeah.
Obviously my girlfriend, who I'm closest to, my best friend, even my other closest friends, I never told them, because
Yeah.
what good do I get from that? That's where people often get criticism when they tell people too early. They tell people, okay, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And they don't do it.
Mm.
You're setting yourself up for failure by saying to somebody, oh, I think I'm going to start this business. And why would you do that? Whatever. You negativity straight away. So unless you've got a tough mindset already, you're likely not going to follow through. So just keep things to yourself
Yeah.
and let your action do the talking. So I would say that's why I didn't get any backlash, because nobody knew about it till it launched.
Yeah.
And because I'd done a pretty good job, it looked professional. Everything looked like, wow, he's put work into this.
Yeah.
They couldn't. How could you take the piss out of it? It's
Yeah.
ambition. What can you take the piss out of?
No, I love that, man. And do you, when we think about like the buzz of wanting to tell someone, like, did you have that but just
Yes,
overcome it?
yes.
Like in terms of
If something good happened, like if a product, like a sample came in, I was I just want to show people this or whatever, or the website. The website was the big one, because although I didn't build the website, I designed it in terms of this is what I want, blah, 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 which is an easy job to do, but I was so chuffed with how it came out and I wanted to share it with people. And what everybody does, everybody, okay, and I'm not saying this as a dig, but people put, let's say they're starting a brand, they'll put something in their story, like a wee picture, big things coming, this coming. I've never done that, never will do that.
Yep.
It's not my thing. It's to seek attention, and I get it. I wanted to do that because you want people to ask. Everybody wants to talk about things they're interested in. But no, I managed to just keep it under wraps, keep everything controlled, because that's where my best work comes from, when nobody knows about it. I often don't tell people about things if I'm doing any kind of self-development based things. I won't go about and tell people that unless we're in deep discussion and it's beneficial to the other person.
Yeah.
I'll just keep things to myself, which people don't often do.
Yeah.
It's a skill. It's a skill, keeping things to yourself.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to tell the world. Show them.
Yeah. And when you think about those kind of like sly kind of comments, any things that spring at your mind in terms of like actual things that were said that other people could have experienced?
No, well, one or two. Nothing big. This was when I first started personal training, because of course I've never been really out there on social media or anything like that. Like, I'll post a picture if I go on holiday with my girlfriend or something like that every now and again, but I've never been that big on it. So when I first started my personal training business, obviously I had to get myself out there. I had to get people to know who I am, understand like me as a person. So I started putting videos and stuff up. A couple of sly things, like, oh, like people would like say something I've said in the video or something like that and kind of laugh about it or something, but it was nothing bad. I've never experienced any bad kind of criticism or anything like that.
And people constantly checking up on you.
But yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something that I think probably I was the same, to be fair. I never really had anything that was definitely at school, mate. Definitely like a form of I remember I started a YouTube channel and that got found, and that was like, I was ridiculed, mate. And it was just, I remember standing in my garden thinking, right, cool, man, I'll just delete it all. Fuck it.
So I'd done the same thing, right? So, and see if I had my mindset now, wow, I could have blown up on YouTube, right? Because when I was 14 or so, I had that, like I told you before we started recording, I had a HD PVR, okay, so I could record myself. Not many people had that. I recorded, I trick shotted and done all these things in Modern Warfare 2, which not many people done. And people would say, oh, you're trick shot and stuff, and they take the piss out of it. I remember I had a friend, right, this guy that I was friends with, and he was really popular, and he done it too. Nobody took the piss out of him, right? Everybody took the piss, which it was nothing horrific, but everybody, they took the piss out of it. And I remember I thought, right, I'm gonna put a YouTube channel, but I'm not gonna tell anybody. I thought, right, I'll do it on FIFA and I'll commentate over it. So I record this. What was it? I think it was I was building a team, an Ultimate Team, whatever. Recorded myself speaking over it. Boom, done it. Listened back to it, and I almost started crying. Right, 14-year-old Conor almost started crying listening to himself. The first time I've ever heard myself speak like on a recording. I was like, oh my god, this isn't me. Of course it was. Just lacked confidence, lacked everything. Patched it. Uploaded a few kind of ones where I wasn't talking. I actually done graphic design for about 3 months. Put wee montages of that. I've never shared them with anybody or anything like that. But yeah, so I get that. I get that a lot, because that's what school was like. Yeah,
definitely was, mate. And like most people, when they're starting a business or when they're starting like anything, a personal brand, or because there's so much opportunity now, people definitely shut down at the thought of being ridiculed or questioned or any sort of. And I think as well, it probably comes from an element of like for me, I didn't ever want to be in the limelight. Like, I didn't want to be any form of
introvert. You don't.
Yeah, I wanted the Ferrari, but nobody to know that it was me driving the Ferrari. Whereas most people want the fame associated with it.
I have almost a vision of at some point. I mean, see, even right now, right, and this is no intention of bragging or whatever. I could go out and buy a nice car, right, really nice car, drive about it. To me, that's a complete and utter waste of money. A car for me is to get me from point A to point B. If it's reliable, brilliant. If I like the look of it, cool. But I don't need it to. I would rather invest that money, and in the future, I'm gonna have a much greater return. People get nice cars to impress others. It's a simple fact. Now I have this kind of vision that when I'm maybe whatever age, I'll always drive a simple car. And I almost have this vision of people laughing at it and me laughing back to myself, thinking, wow, they just don't understand. Like, they don't know what's in the background. They don't know what investments I have. They don't know what business I have. They don't know my mindset. They don't know nothing. But of course, that's everybody judges people based on externals. So if you rock up in a old Ford Fiesta, but you're a multi-millionaire, nobody knows. But it's your job not to care. Care about what matters.
And most people associate the success with the fame in terms of people knowing that they're doing incredible.
It's just important to understand what success is to you, because success is a relative term. Success means different things to different people. Being a millionaire isn't successful to everybody. I know a good few millionaires. Not all of them, to me, are successful. Many of them are. Some of them aren't, and some of them wouldn't class themselves as successful. If you're, I don't know, 40 years old, for example, you're a millionaire, and by all means, you've got a nice house, you've got a nice car. But you're unfulfilled, you're unhappy. Is that success? Financial success, yeah, of course it is. But determine what is success for you. You want to
Yeah.
work a normal day job? Great, do it. What is success to you?
Mm.
Is it having good relationships, building a family, something like that?
Yeah.
Good, do that. But don't conform to what everybody else's idea of success is, because again, success is a relative term. What it is to you, that's what you need to understand.
What is success to you?
Fulfillment.
Yeah.
But fulfillment's relatively hard to measure,
Mm.
to me at least. Of course, I have financial goals, which would be success. I have relationship goals, friendship goals, which would be success. I have goals, what I want to do business wise, which would be success. I have many avenues, but at the end of the day, it's happiness and fulfillment.
Mm.
I'm quite big on kind of, especially now, Stoicism, which is a philosophy,
Yeah.
an ancient philosophy, and their idea of success is just being a virtuous person, being a good person,
Yeah.
and it's understand what a good person really is. And if I'm 80 something with no regrets and a good person, good relationships, happy what I've done, that's success.
Yeah.
That is success. And measuring success by anything that's related to that goal. Jim Rohn said those two things.
Yeah.
He also said success is a relative term, and one way to measure success is by anything that helps you get closer to that goal. So if let's just use an easy example here, not a great example, but if your goal was to be a millionaire, first of all, you're going to be very disappointed from what I've heard, if you reach that. Stephen Bartlett talks about it all the time. But if your goal was to be a millionaire, have £1 million in the bank or overall net worth, when you get to 100k, that's success.
Yeah.
That's you getting closer to that goal. So that's why it's so important to measure things. It's to have that target we spoke about.
Yeah.
Have that target, and anything you get in relation to that is success.
Mm.
You're succeeding, and that's motivation. So motivation will come.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be there, but it will come from things like this.
Incredible, man. Yeah. What actually is Stoicism? Like
Stoicism is it's an ancient philosophy. It was a few thousand years ago. Originated in Greece, moved to Rome. There's a few very famous Stoics, one being Marcus Aurelius, who was a Roman emperor. Stoicism has a few different beliefs, but one of the main beliefs of Stoicism is that you cannot control anything out with your control. You need to understand that. Okay,
Yeah.
so somebody crashes into you, you get angry, you get this, you get that. You can't control it. It's done. It's almost, to me, it's logical thinking.
Yeah.
Think of it logically, right? Somebody crashes into the back of you. Oh, I need to get this fixed. This is terrible. I'm going to be late. I'm going to be this. Think of it logically. Okay, they've lost concentration. They went in the back of my car. What can I do about this? Okay, I can get out level-headed, because when emotion is high, communication is ineffective.
Yeah.
So if you're angry, you're going to go out. You can't communicate with them well. You can't resolve this with them. So going out, being level-headed, being, listen, what happened there, blah, blah, blah. They tell you, you're going to get a way better outcome from that rather than coming out all angry. So it's just understanding. The main thing of Stoicism is to understand that what is out with your control is what is within your control.
Yeah.
And the one thing which is always within your control is your mind, your thoughts, how you respond to situations. And there's many examples of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, but people don't understand that until it's
Yeah.
too late. So yeah, that's Stoicism in a kind of nutshell, but there's many aspects of it. I would encourage anybody, search in. Ryan Holiday's a big author, big guy, kind of at the forefront of Stoicism in the modern day. Search it in. Just look at it. I'm not asking you to delve deep into Stoicism. Just look at it, understand it, and I guarantee a lot of people will find they'll resonate with it. They'll want to resonate with it.
Yeah.
So it's a great way. It's just a great way to think. It's not a religion. It's just a great way to live.
Yeah. No, absolutely, mate. I relate in every level in terms of eliminating the emotion to then also allow you to think on a much clearer level, and gain clarity, mate.
Exactly. So like I just said, right? So when emotions are high, communication is ineffective. Essentially what that means is any bouts of anger or extreme happiness, it's like people say, never make a deal when you're in extreme happiness.
Yeah.
Whether that's with your girlfriend, let's say you've had a few beers, your girlfriend's like, oh, can we go here? I'm like, yeah, no bother, whatever. Don't do that. Not good, believe me. So never make decisions when you're either very angry, very upset. Go away from that situation. If you're arguing with a partner, with a friend, try and just take space. Go away. Anger, honestly, it goes quicker than most people think. They think, oh, I'm going to be angry for ages. It doesn't. Go away. Take time yourself. Breathe. Think about things. Come back. You'll have a much better conversation.
Yeah. Was it never make decisions when you're angry, never make promises when you're happy?
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the exact one.
The first time I've experienced the latter, the never make promises when you're happy, was my closest mate Jack. He'll probably fucking hate me for bringing this up to be fair, but Smithy used to, we were ever out on a Friday or a Saturday, whatever, and he'd had a few to drink. he'd get gassed.
Yeah.
And he'd be like, right, cool, mate, Nando's tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll go this,
Yeah.
we'll do this. We'll, I'll be up nice and early. And to begin with, it was like, aye, soon. Me too, me too. Never made it.
Mate, the amount of holidays I've planned with people, the amount of people that have told me, like, see if I've been out drinking, it's very common. I'll go to the gym the next day. I don't get terribly hungover, whatever. So people say, what are you up to tomorrow? But just whatever, I'm doing this. I'll go to the gym. Like, oh, mate, I'll come with you. I want to go to the gym. I'm right, okay, come with me. See the amount of people who have said that to me, and it's nothing against them. It's just they're making decisions when they really shouldn't be.
Yeah.
The amount of people have said, oh, well, we'll go out in a few weeks' time. Everybody does it. But it's trying to understand that. See, if you're drunk or anything, anytime an emotion is high, it takes a lot of strength to level your emotions and not make rash judgments.
Yeah.
It's like if you're out on a night out, somebody pushes you, see to turn around and say to them, oh, sorry, mate, whatever, rather than saying what you're doing. What good comes from that? When you turn around and causing confrontation, oh, your pals think you look big. Okay. That guy could be he could be a dangerous man. There's no need to say that. And again, that comes from emotions, when emotions are high. So that's Stoicism, learning to control your emotions.
Yeah. So when we think about all this knowledge that you attained, what is it you plan on doing with all of it?
Applying it.
Applying
Applying it to everything. Applying it to business. Applying it to relationships. Applying it to whatever environment I'm in. Which is why I need to take notes, because anybody that's listening that reads a book or listens to audiobooks, they just listen to them and they think, oh, but I'm going to forget everything. I forgot everything. Yes, so do I. That's why I take notes. And they don't need to be structured, things like that. It could be something as simple as, like, for example, the 48 Laws of Power. It's a 23-hour audiobook. No chance am I going to remember most of that.
Yep.
Me, if something applies to me, I'll take a note of that law and I'll expand upon it. I'll say what I think about it. So now if we talk about, let's say, confidence, right? I could get my phone right now and I could search in confidence and it will tell me a couple of notes I've taken, whether it's quotes or parts of my book about confidence.
Yep.
See that notes app on your iPhone?
Yeah.
The most incredible thing ever, honestly. You can take a note, you can literally just make a couple of folders, right? Whether it's, you call it self-development. You could put books, audiobooks, whatever. Just take notes. Doesn't have to be any more structured than that. If you hear a quote you like, diligence is the mother of good luck. Brilliant. Put it down. If you kind of think, okay, what does that mean? Write down underneath it. That's why I do my interpretation of it.
Yep.
So then if we're talking about something and you mention diligence, I'm like, oh wait, I've read about that before. Search it up, diligence, and in the notes in the search bar it comes up.
Yep.
And there you go. There's your thoughts on your phone right in front of you. So yeah, that's one thing I say to everybody. Take full advantage of that notes app on your iPhone. It's not a fancy app. Everybody looks for the fancy app where you can journal and do this and that on the one app. Notes is an incredibly powerful app, and utilize it.
You inspired me massively when you showed me your notes for the first time.
Yep.
Because mine was a chaotic mess, or some people would say an organised mess, but I think I took full advantage of being able to just search whatever I wanted anyways.
Yeah.
Whereas you had it in set folders, broken down into quotes, thoughts, businesses, years, everything, from start to finish. What made you do that?
Do you know? I don't remember from that. In fact, I do. Now you say that. Maybe 2019, wasn't long after I left school, my first year of college, I stumbled across Forex trading, which for anybody that doesn't know is the foreign exchange market is essentially currencies and you can trade them, you can make money off them, you can also lose money on them.
Yeah.
And at the time and still now, you'll see there's a lot of scammers and stuff, a lot of guys do courses and stuff. So I'd done one of these courses. That's one of my first areas of being exposed to an incredible group of people on a WhatsApp group. And that critical thinking, I wanted to know more. What is that? So when I first started learning about that, there was a course and I was like, right, how do I note these? I've left school, like, what do I do? I've not got any notepads or anything like that. Right, I'll use my notes.
Yeah.
So I just structured them. And that's how it began. I'd put Forex, and I'd put, maybe if it was candlestick patterns, I'd put that as a folder.
Yeah.
I'd write about candlestick patterns. So I'd screenshot it on my iPad, I'd watch it on my iPad, screenshot it. That would then save to my phone. And I would put that image in, say it was a candlestick pattern, and I'd write a little description under it. Something like that. So that's when I started, and now it's 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, the goals. There's obviously the kind of self-development side of things. There's the investment. There's Adenozine's got its folder. There's my personal training business has got its folder. I've got a folder for my thoughts, my emotions, almost a journal.
Yeah.
So yeah, but people they would listen to that and think, well, right, okay, I'm going to try and do all that. No, don't. Try something really simple, whether it's you want to understand yourself a bit better, write your emotions or write your goals. But don't just write your goals, write objectives, how are you going to achieve them.
Yeah.
Start with that. Once you get in a habit of using that notes app, which I did 4 years ago, and now look at it.
Yeah.
3-4 years ago, it's expanded into something that I use every single day.
It's interesting, mate, because I had candlestick formations, sticky note all over my wall.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
was like my form of like mirrors on my wardrobe, the side of my wardrobe, because that used to be at the back of my desk. And when I was just to be back testing or whatever it was
Yeah,
that I was
yeah,
doing,
yeah.
I would just like look and I'd be like, oh, that's a bearish engulfing. Oh,
Mhm,
yeah, it is
mhm.
definitely. And I'd look back at
That's
it and it
cool. I
was,
like that. But the only thing with that is you have the paper is very easy when it gets destroyed very
yeah,
easily.
100%.
It's very easy to lose. Whereas on an iPhone, you'll have it. Like I'm very confident that I will have an iPhone the rest of my entire life, and I will hopefully. I mean, I'll need to have about 9 terabytes of memory,
Yeah.
but by that time, but hopefully in my fifth. This is one of my whole goals of noting everything. Is in my 50s and 60s that I can look back. How was Conor thinking as a 23-year-old?
Yeah.
What was the thought process behind me doing this with adenosine? What was the process behind me doing this personal training wise or investing wise? Reflection.
What interests you about that?
About what?
Like
About in the
like
future
thinking it, yeah.
reflection. It's something it's just something I enjoy. I have many different ways to do it. I've got like video journals, I've got written journals. And even if I only started doing them a year ago, to look back now and see how I was thinking a year ago when compared to now and what I was doing a year ago.
Yeah.
Mad.
Yeah.
Mad. Like that's one of the best ways to see your progress. Just write down a bit about your thoughts.
Yeah.
Journaling has so many benefits. At its simplest form, it's just seeing how you thought a while ago, whatever time. So I can now look back and see how I thought 2 years ago, what my perceptions were of certain things. And I can think, wow, that's how that happened. And now look how I think.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Because what is it? I like to say, like if somebody says, oh, well, who inspires you most? My future self.
Yeah.
Like nothing inspires me more than thinking, where could I be in 3 years' time? If I keep doing the diligent steps I'm doing now with adenosine, with my personal training business, with investing, with reading, with writing, my knowledge, where could it be in 3 years? That's exciting. That should excite everybody. As soon as you get in a path that you enjoy, it should excite you. Your future self should excite you.
Absolutely, man. And when we reflect on a lot of the stuff that we have learned as well and how it's evolved into the person that we become, we reflect back on it, it's always great levels of inspiration, man. Without a doubt.
You mentioned earlier, where would you get a kind of motivation from your previous self, from things you've done? Like, how are you meant to know what you've achieved if you don't note it down? So yeah, like, note down everything. Note down how you're feeling. Note down what you want to learn. Just journal. Just write. It doesn't need to be anything specific. Just write what you're thinking at that moment in time.
Yeah. So when you think about all this, the knowledge that you've obtained over this time period, how has the knowledge that you've obtained helped you with build relationships and communication and stuff like that?
It's helped me first and foremost become more valuable to others. Like to you, if I hadn't started self-development 3-4 years ago and reading and writing, I wouldn't be much use. I don't mean that in a negative way. Like I wouldn't, like what type of conversations would we have? So it allows me to have better conversations with people, which can then spark many things. It can spark business opportunities. It can spark also just relationships, friendships.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would say that it gives me better opportunities in the future with everything, with business, with relationships, which then lead to many different things.
Yeah. When you think about the kind of relationships aspect, because a lot of people, when they think about business, I think a lot of people let's say overanalyze, but when they think about, when I thought about me coming into business as an introvert, it was definitely something that was, I feel like it was against my grain. As an individual, it was like, why would you not just trade for the rest of your life? Like, rather than coming in and exposing yourself to an environment that makes you, one, uncomfortable, and two, you don't feel like it's natural. You also don't feel like you're saying the things that you would say in hindsight, for example. So like when activating the flow state, when you're in the shower, for example, and you're thinking through a whole conversation. So when we think about the angle of you building those kind of levels of communication, understanding how to build relationships, and you relate it to business, I think that any piece of advice, whenever I look at anyone that is incredibly successful, whether that's business related, financially, it all comes down to being able to actually transfer their understanding of value.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what is knowledge if it's nothing? If you like, when I remember a specific journal note I wrote on, and mate, it was crazy. I just felt the need. I was journaling, right? So I was inspired, and I was thinking, right, inspiration is perishable. Act on it immediately. So I got my journal out and I was speaking my thoughts, and it was essentially kind of why I will get what I want, why I will, that sounds a bit strange, but why I will succeed in what I want.
Yeah.
And one of the things I said was I almost used it as like I was talking to somebody that wasn't like me, somebody that wasn't inspired, somebody that wasn't energized and done the things that I done. And it was, I would say, you do this, I do this. So one of the things was, you merely sit on knowledge, I apply it.
Yeah.
So all this knowledge I'm getting from books and stuff, it would mean nothing. It would be literally nothing if it sat there. But I look for opportunities to practice this. I look at opportunities to practice wisdom and anything. Like I said to you about being grateful for that experience you had, things like that. I didn't think like that 3 years ago. Like, see, if I'd listened to myself 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I'm like, what's this guy talking about?
Yeah.
But it's a certain level of understanding you gain the more you read and you even write about yourself. You start to understand.
Yeah. And what is the one book that you'd recommend to anyone that's struggling with building relationships?
How to Win Friends and Influence People, 100%.
Yeah.
I was thinking of another, but I can't even remember the name of it now. But How to Win Friends and Influence People is, I believe it was written in the 20s or the 30s. It was Dale Carnegie, and they searched him up. Very kind of famous author, very smart guy, mingled with a lot of entrepreneurs of that time.
Yeah.
Speaks a lot about kind of Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, who is one of the richest people of all time. He's from Scotland. It should be an interesting fact for you. But yeah, How to Win Friends and Influence People teaches you how to communicate with people. It's not just merely me talking to you. I need to take an interest in you. Like, one of the things he says is take a genuine interest in other people.
Yeah.
So if I meet somebody new, right, and I say to them, how you doing, mate? All right? And he's like, not bad, mate. How are you? And not bad. A conversation already, right? And there's oh, what do you do? Oh, I'm a plumber, right? Oh, cool. What do you do? I'm a personal trainer. Oh, cool. That levels out the conversation. Okay, if I take a genuine interest in him and say, okay, how long have you been doing that for? Oh, about 5 years. Brilliant. Oh, but are you self-employed? Do you do this? Do you do that? Oh, whatever. And then they're gonna like that. See, if they don't like their job, fair enough. Find something else.
Yeah.
Take a genuine interest in other people.
Yeah.
That's a big tip from How to Win Friends and Influence People. And you build better relationships. People tend to like you.
Yeah.
Of course, who wouldn't like somebody that's talking to them about something they're inspired about, or they like?
And people tend to be, when a conversation is made about them, they tend to believe that the conversation went incredibly well, which is something that I found incredibly interesting. The more I reflected, it's not something that you speak about in the book.
That's
but
so true.
Aye, like whenever I think about times where I believed a conversation went well from my old self, and then nothing ever came from it. It was like, when I actually reflect on it in hindsight, it was because I believed the conversation was about me and that I conveyed my goals and my business, and it was very interesting because I was the one that was speaking about it, but nothing ever actually stems from it. And it's something that, I think people definitely believe that when they're in that environment. Definitely notice it more in business. I feel like when you meet someone that's incredible, Paula was one of the first people that I met that no matter what question I asked, her answer always reverted back to making it about me.
Wow.
Which put me in a position of like, even when I became aware of it, still struggled. It was like she'd obviously just practiced it for years. But it was, no matter what question she asked me, if I tried to revert back to it,
it would come back to you.
She would be like, oh, why are you asking that question? And
then
it'd be like, oh, just because of that. Oh, why? How do you think that way? And it was just like, mate, you're putting me in a position here where I'm trying to be who I want to be, but you're so good at navigating around it that it was impossible.
Which is the best for you, and I always understand that with my clients. My clients are going to have obviously, first and foremost, they need results. It's what's going to make their life better. I need to find out, right, what's going to make their life better, how they're going to live better, and help them achieve that. But they need to enjoy it. See, if they're coming into the gym with me every day and I'm boring and I'm talking about rubbish about myself, they don't care. They don't really, well, some of them do because I build good relationships with them, but I need to take a genuine interest in them. So like you said, they ask me, oh, you're up to the weekend, I'll tell them a little bit, but I'll try and revert it back to them. Sometimes I feel if I'm talking about someone passionate, I'm like, oh, I spoke too long about myself. Revert it back to them. And that's not out of any, like, it's genuine. I genuinely do want to talk about them, and I want to make the experience even better with me. So it's not like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I want to do it. But yeah, you're right. It's reminding yourself to focus on that person, which a great business person does, I believe. And you explained it with Paul. That's a great example of it.
Yeah. And the key word of that whole sentence for me is genuine. Because if you're just doing it out of whatever reason, if
Yes,
it's just
ill
because,
intention.
yeah,
It comes across.
yeah. And if you're doing it because you believe that that's what's going to present you with the most opportunities, which in
Mhm.
hindsight it will,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
if that's the sole reason of
That's
why
your
you're
goal.
doing it, yeah, treating it as a means to an end, then it's not going to work, mate.
And people suss it out. Like,
Yeah,
see if I said to you, like, oh, what do you do? Whatever. And then I was like, okay, well, this is what I do.
yeah, yeah.
And then it's quite, so it was almost, you rushed it.
Mm.
People will pick up on it and it will come across as that it's ill intent. So yeah, it can be very much taken that way.
I used to see it quite a bit when in the early stages of my business career, anyways, when I used to do the one of Paul's rules was doing 5 a day, speaking to 5 new people every day.
Yeah.
I would send people video messages via
Yes.
LinkedIn or whatever it may be, and usually that would result in a small conversation, which would then result in a one-to-one or a meeting. And when I'd be on that meeting, it would start because I didn't know, not necessarily didn't know, I knew roughly, and I role modeled Paula and how she was navigating. So I tried to always make it around another individual. But you become more woke to people that are doing it in a like with shit intentions. Um, you'll say something along the lines of they'll ask you what is it you do, and you don't even get it out. You don't even get the words out your mouth to say, "Oh, what is it you do?" And then they go, "Oh yeah, I think about that time of when I done gaming when I was 10," and it just becomes about them, innit?
It's like with the 48 Laws of Power, which is a book where people have almost not bad reviews, but they think, oh, it's very deceiving. You're deceiving people. It's nothing about that. It's being able to understand that so you can see what people are trying to do to you.
Yeah.
It's very important because I notice that people, they feel like they want to get across to you that they're taking an interest in you, but they're not. Exactly like you just said. As soon as you start to say something that you're interested in, they revert it back to them.
Yeah.
And but to sense that and to be able to understand that, you need to read.
Yeah.
You need to read these things like the 48 Laws of Power, not to implement those things in that way, but to be able to understand when you're talking to people, okay, why are they saying this to me?
Yeah.
Like human behavior is something I've never delved super deep into, but something I'm really interested in. Like, why do humans behave in certain ways? What makes them do this? Why are they doing this? Like, so when you don't look at a conversation as merely a conversation, you think, okay, what's this person trying to get out of it? What can I get from this conversation? How can I make this a good conversation? That's a powerful way to look at things.
Yeah. But when you think about all this knowledge that you've attained, it almost can operate like a superpower, something that allows for you to have a massive advantage in anything it is that you do on a day-to-day basis. So when you think about, if I break it down and like go Tony Robbins style and break it into like 3 core principles of things that you've learned and applied to business, what are kind of the first things that come to your mind?
From books or just in general?
Just general knowledge. Well, books, knowledge, whatever it may be.
It's quite hard to think of 3.
Yeah.
See one thing, right? See if I put it out this way. See if I told you 3 quotes, or a few quotes, right? And I'll expand on them and how that relates. So one of my favorite quotes is, "Diligence is the mother of good luck."
Yeah.
So diligence is careful and persistent work or effort. Now, it's not saying hard work, consistency, whatever. Like it's not just consistency, it's careful and persistent. You need to be persistent with things, you need to be careful with things. That applies to business, that applies to anything. If you are working on your business day in, day out, 20 hours a day, some stupid 16 hours, 18 hours a day, but you're not careful with the work you're putting in, you're going to get nowhere. Yeah. So that's one thing I've learned is diligence is the mother of good luck. So if you're careful with the work you put in, good luck arises. Believe me, it does. I've experienced it at times. Another one, comparison is the thief of joy. Big one in business. Comparing yourself to others, and I'm saying this in a business sense now. If I look at other businesses, clothing brand wise, there's hugely successful ones that have been around for way less time than Adenosine. I could quite easily look at the negative in that and think, oh well, they've done this, I've not done this, maybe I should just pack it in. Fuck that, no way. The comparison can be good at times, but for the vast majority of times, comparison is the thief of joy. It takes joy away. No need for it. Focus on you. So yeah, I would say that. In terms of like anything else, I can't think of like another quote off the top of my head, but those are the big things. And in fact, another principle would just be surround yourself with positive people. And I say positive is that word. They don't need to be mega smart. They need to be positive. Of course, it helps if their business knowledge is great. For example, with YEN, it blows my mind some of the conversations that I had when I'm like, wow, I'm so lucky. I get to surround myself with people like this. And we mentioned Andrew earlier. Like you speak to that guy for more than a minute and you're not inspired. Don't know what's wrong with you. you know what I mean? Like the guy's just he's a magnet for positivity. So by putting yourself in an environment with these types of people is mega, is huge. People that you can relate to, people that are gonna strive you to do more.
Yeah. And anyone that's not listened to the episode with Andrew, which was one of the online episodes back in season 1, he was one of the first couple. He was one of the first people I was like, I need to get you on
Yeah,
the
definitely.
podcast. I do want to do one in person with him just to reiterate more on. Yeah, he's someone that is so damn unique. And when I think about the bell curve,
Unique is the word.
he's someone that is in that 0.1%. He's just the way he thinks, mate, and the way he, even the session last Tuesday,
Yeah,
the questions he was asking
it's
Kirsty, like,
mad for someone so young. But one of the things he's done is he reads a lot, or he learns all the time.
he's so disciplined, mate.
He's incredibly disciplined. He's diligent with what he does. Everything he does, he's diligent with. He does it every day in, day out, or whatever days he's meant to do it. And he surrounds himself with positive people.
Yeah,
and I guarantee he won't compare himself either, because comparison's the thief of joy, and I know he knows that. He will, for sure.
Absolutely, man. He's one of the member spotlight I done with Andy as well.
Yes.
Were you at that session when I done the member spotlight?
No, I don't think so.
I think you would have been.
I think I was.
I'll need to send it over to you, mate. But he speaks, but it'll be something that will be going on the Young Entrepreneurs Academy when we start to obviously bring that into play. But the question I asked him was around his mindset towards being uncomfortable on a regular basis, but not even in like the manner of like in times where things could annoy you or frustrate you or piss you off. His attitude was just like, it helps me grow.
Yep.
And it was something that I tried to understand how he developed that, which came from an element of like what he went through when he was younger, but it's incredibly interesting.
So see, two things you just mentioned there. So first of all, like discomfort or pain or anything drives growth. Like discomfort is where growth comes from. If I think about the first time I ever spoke with YEN, with people like that, I wasn't comfortable. I didn't want to do that. And now look where I am in terms of the relationships I built and the opportunities that have arisen from that for me. And one way I like to think of that is physically as well. It's one thing the Stoics believed, actually, with Stoicism, relating back to that. They believed in making yourself uncomfortable. Cold showers, right? People always preach this and that, but cold showers, there are some health benefits and whatnot. But the biggest one to me is the mental discipline that you build. With standing there in cold water and try to control your breathing. It's horrific, mate. It's not nice. It's not good, but the feeling after it is brilliant. So getting in that area of discomfort is critical. You need to do it. Growth doesn't come from comfort. It comes from discomfort. But people don't understand that. They think pain is bad and discomfort is bad. No, not at all.
Well, I get excited when I get to, like this week, for example, the overwhelm and stuff like that. She just sends me a voice note for basically like singing with happiness. The thought of growth coming from
exactly. That's where it comes from. And what was it? The Stoics. One thing I listened to the other day, it was Marcus Aurelius, who, like I mentioned earlier, is a very famous Stoic. He was a Roman emperor. He had a very famous book, one of the most famous books of all time, most likely, called The Meditations. Now, it wasn't a book. It was his thoughts. It's been made into a book of sorts, but it was his thoughts. And one of his thoughts was that he used any time of discomfort or anger or anything like that as an opportunity to practice wisdom. Okay, so say you're getting overwhelmed, you're like, oh, all these people are annoying me, all these people are doing that. Use opportunities where people are annoying you to practice your wisdom. So if I came face to face with somebody and they were saying like, you're this, you're that, you're that, that's a great opportunity for me. It's a fantastic opportunity for me to control my emotions, not get angry, to stay within like my boundaries, can talk about what I know and what I'm knowledgeable in. So that's a really important thing I'd say to people is use those opportunities to practice wisdom. Control your emotions. Like obviously Paul will get excited when you're in those situations because growth is going to come. It's a great opportunity to see what you're made of, to control your emotions and to work through it. The obstacle is the way, as Ryan Holiday says. He's got a very big, Marcus Aurelius said it, but it's a book, The Obstacle is the Way. That's where growth comes from, that big obstacle. Overturn it.
It was one of the questions that you met Lewis McFarlane when he came on one of the sessions. And it was something that one of the questions he asked Jude, or explained to Jude, something that Lewis does on a regular basis as a form of obviously journaling, but his form of journaling was questions that he'd prepared that believed were most important, which one of those was, what is it that you're avoiding today? And he'd just ask himself every single day, what is it that you're avoiding? What is it you're avoiding? And people usually find that as a form of like, oh, if I'm avoiding it, I wouldn't want to do it anyways.
Mm-hmm.
But it's usually a great representation of an area that you could grow in.
You need to be self-aware.
Mm.
If you're saying, oh, why am I ignoring it? You'll make an excuse up because of this. No. Nah, fuck that. Why are you ignoring it? Delve deeper into it. Why are you ignoring this? What's making you stay away from this? It's so important. But again, that comes from self-awareness. You have no self-awareness, you can't understand these things. You can't push by them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a great one. It's a great question to ask yourself on a
Absolutely.
daily basis.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. So when we think about there was a portion, I'm just looking at my phone here because you gave me your top 5 books
Yeah.
in no particular order.
Mm-hmm.
We'll touch on each of these and why they're in your top 5, and that will take us to time, mate. So one of your first ones on there is Atomic Habits.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
What is the why behind the Atomic Habits?
So Atomic Habits, if you hadn't guessed, it's about habits. It's not just about, what is a habit. It's about how to apply a habit. It's about how to remove habits. It's about everything to do with habits. And it's a great way for people to understand what habit really is.
Yeah.
And because people always think, I need to put in this good habit. No, not just that. You need to remove bad habits. And how do you remove those bad habits? Everybody's always focused on New Year's resolutions, right? I need to do this. I need to start doing this. No. Remove the things that you shouldn't be doing and then bring in the things you should. So I would say that's one thing. But just breaking down to habits, what they really are, and they're relatively simple.
Yeah.
Many different ways around. The amount of quotes from that book that will spark so many thoughts, they're thought-provoking, which is why I read books, to provoke thoughts. Yeah. I would say it's mega, definitely. It's very short as well. It's relatively short, so quite a good one for beginners to read.
What are some of the bad habits that you feel like most people in our society should remove at the moment?
Spending time with people or in environments where they don't progress. And that could be a few things. That could be going out and drinking at the weekend. Okay, now I do this relatively regularly. I go out, but I've got that level of self-awareness where I can realize, right, I was out twice in the past 2 weeks or twice in 1 week. Right, I need to control this. That removed 6 hours of work for me. Now look how that impacted my week.
Yeah.
If certain people, certain friends, or maybe are they really friends? Really think about that, and don't spend as much time in that environment.
Yeah.
And then once you've done that, you've freed up time. What can you do with that time? Put yourself in better environments. Use that time to read.
Yeah.
Whether it's a page, 10 pages, whatever. Use that time to do something. Doesn't need go and watch telly if you want, but start that off by doing something that you wouldn't usually do.
Yeah. And how would you say someone who is struggling in an environment at the moment and they don't know how to get out of it? What would be your piece of advice?
First of all, understand why. Why is it bad for you? Because if somebody confronts you, let's say it's a friend, right? And you are good friends with them, but spending time with them, I don't know if you're drinking or you're doing something, but you need to be working, okay? And you want to work. You need to be able to understand that, why you're doing it. So when they say to you, right, well, why don't you want to do this with me? You say, listen, I have certain goals and I love spending time with you, but it's not always the most beneficial for me. I need to do this, I need to do that. And if it's a true friend, they'll understand. Don't be surprised if at first they would react badly.
Yeah.
But in the end, they should understand. So yeah, think about it. What is it? How are you going to benefit from this? So when somebody confronts you and asks you why you're doing it, you can then tell them and put it into place.
I think that's always the most common question that gets brought up in anything when I do speak about your environment, the importance of it. Some of the more basic quotes that Jim Rohn speaks about. You'll probably say it before I could even say it.
No, go for it. Go for it. 'Cause
you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and it's the most common.
and big and angry Dan Penna, he always says it as well.
Yeah.
Boy. But it's so true, isn't it?
It definitely is. And most people, when that quote is brought up or anything in the form of environment or the people that you spend time with, the most common question after it is usually the opportunity of conflict that could arise from that. And people don't like the thought of that because they think that they're upsetting someone or putting themselves in a position where not necessarily they're being someone that they don't want to be, but where you upset someone, it's not
it's
positive,
not nice.
It's not great.
Yeah. However, conflict delayed is conflict multiplied, as Jordan Peterson says. So if you're going to be taking action and doing this and removing yourself from an environment where it's not good for you and you fear that there may be confrontation, believe that. Conflict delayed is conflict multiplied. It's like the example of somebody cheating on somebody. They won't tell them. See if 6 months down the line their partner found out about that. they're going to feel so much worse.
Yeah.
And the conflict's going to be so much worse. I mean, it's going to be terrible at the time. It's going to be an uncomfortable situation, but conflict delayed is conflict multiplied.
Mm-hmm.
So get it out there, take action. That's a big step for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Taking action on that.
Absolutely. The second book you got in there is Think and Grow Rich, which I believe was your baby, your first.
Yeah, it was my first book. Actually, it might have even been my second. I might have read Rich Dad Poor Dad before that, the audiobook. But yeah, Think and Grow Rich. Now, anybody that's listening that hasn't read a book or listened to an audiobook before, Think and Grow Rich could potentially, like The Secrets of a Millionaire Mind or whatever, I forget the exact name, was for you. It could be your big turnaround. There's a lot of great books out there. A lot of them have the same ideas. So see that first book, one of your first kind of free books, that's going to be your favourite for a long, long time. And that's what Think and Grow Rich was for me. It was the mind shift. The mindset shift. Yeah, watch what I'm saying there. So for me, that was open the possibilities. Like it showed me what was possible. And I was thinking, wow, people really do this because it gives examples of how people have done it. Why can't I do it? So it was a mind shift. Mind shift. It was a mind shift for me. That's what it was. Think and Grow Rich. I would highly recommend it.
I can't wait for you to read The Talent Code.
Yeah.
Because that's a lot of those kind of principles, because because Think and Grow Rich was so important to you. And a lot of what is referred to as things like the 4-minute mile and stuff like that, and believing that things are possible because you witness someone else doing it. And it's always when I think of it personally, when I spoke at UWS, the university, when I referred to my journey, I experienced that at every area of my life. You know, when I was 6 or 7, I would lay in the top bunk bed and I'd watch Daniel make montages on Gears of War, which was like he was like, I idolized him, you know, I admired him. I wanted to, everything that Daniel done, I wanted to do. You know, he had a fucking blonde stripe in his head. I was like, Mum, can I dye my hair? Like, let's get this sorted. You know, if he had a mullet, I was like, I want a mullet. You know, I want a rat's tail. All sorts of stuff. And it was just the admiration of the level that he was at in gaming, which was my first spark of kind of like, you can achieve greatness in gaming. Yeah. And it definitely turned around. And then when I was 13, I met Jack, which was otherwise known as Smithy, and he was playing competitive Call of Duty. And that was kind of like well, if Jack can do it, I can do it, you know, let's do it together. And we started playing. And then when I was 15, I met Scott, who had mad goals and aspirations, came from the same environment, school. Our dads were friends, played in the same football team. There was no reason for me not to think differently.
It's infectious.
Yeah.
It's when you surround yourself with somebody like Andrew is a good example.
Yeah.
I mentioned it earlier, when you're with Andrew, you're like, wow, motivates you the rest of your day. And to be consistently around people like that, it's amazing. Yeah. Very contagious.
Absolutely, mate. I couldn't agree more. Number 3 on here you've got, which we already spoke about, is how to win friends and influence people.
Yeah.
Is the why just what you spoke about earlier, yeah.
Just how to understand people, how to, not in a manipulative way, but how to get what you want from a situation in a good way with good intention behind it. So how to communicate with people. Yeah,
because a lot of people come up with incredible ideas or find ways that they can deliver an incredible amount of value, but they don't know how to communicate it. That was me with YN, man.
Exactly.
That was me.
Introverts, they don't necessarily know how to communicate it with people.
Yeah.
But how to win friends and influence people will teach you how to do that. How to teach you how to remember somebody's name. You know what I mean? There's so many wee things in it that you can take for the rest of your life. So it's a big book to read for sure in terms of the value you'll get from it.
Absolutely. It's definitely something that is, when you look at a lot of people, me and Paul spoke about it as well, in terms of the importance of sales, which comes just in the form of transmitting your value in a way of communicating that you can help someone.
Yeah, you don't communicate that well, nobody's going to want to purchase whatever you're selling.
Yeah.
And it all comes from communication.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more, mate. It's incredibly important, man, and that's why we had the workshops that we have in place when David comes in place and takes a sales workshop to help understand, because a lot of people come in with an incredible idea, or they're incredible people, but they don't know how to transmit that.
Yeah, and that's one thing. If MDs want to start a business, is one thing to think about, which I didn't think about, but obviously I think about it all the time now. Right, how are you going to sell this product or service? Like, yeah, you're going to enjoy doing it. It's going to be great. It can benefit people, but how are you going to portray that? Yeah. Very important to get that across.
Absolutely, mate. And one of the books on here that I've actually not personally read, well, 2, the last 2 I've not read. One was Happy Sexy Millionaire.
Yeah. Read it. Listen to it. I listen to the audiobook. It's Stephen Bartlett that does it. Anybody that doesn't know who he is, Stephen Bartlett is essentially a young entrepreneur. He's started a very successful business when he was very young, made a lot of money. He's somebody you'd look at and think he's very articulate. That's what I really like about him. That's something I aspire to be. He's quite articulate in conversation. He's very confident. He's got everything that you think that somebody would want. Mega millions, and he didn't. Like he had all that, but he wasn't happy.
Yeah.
He wanted to be this happy, sexy millionaire, but it comes from a perspective like he talks about gratitude a lot in it, and it's a short audiobook. It's like 5 hours. The stories he tells in it are great. I'd highly recommend it for anybody, and that can get you onto the path of the Diary of a CEO. Listen to those podcasts, which to me are the best podcasts, apart from YN, of course. Like out there, there's no better. There's no better podcast. He's so good. The guests are so good.
The way the questions they ask, definitely massive levels of inspiration. Me and Paul sat and really kind of digressed into more of how he actually structures the things that he, and most of it, like I don't necessarily like to plan. I have a safety blanket in preparation for the pod, but a lot of you hear it in the way in which he speaks in terms of the research that he does in preparation for it, and how he knows times to. There'll be cues, obviously, that he'll have people that will give him cues of when to switch into certain areas or certain topics, but. Even the most recent episode I listened to is the one with Piers Morgan.
Yeah, quite interesting. I've not listened to it. I've seen a bit of it. Yeah, very interesting.
He's not my kind of guy.
No, he's not mine either. But again, people will dismiss that. They'll think they can't get any better. I don't like Piers Morgan. He's this, he's that. Just don't. That's you clouding your judgments already. Go into it with an open mind. You could learn a lot from that.
I think most podcasts, especially Stephen Bartlett's, I think it puts people in a light of, because I definitely wasn't on there when I was listening to it. I wasn't sitting thinking that. Oh, Piers Morgan's nothing like me.
Yeah.
I actually found quite a lot of similarities with the way in which he thinks, which I found it very interesting for me. But even things like that, I wouldn't like. Matt Hancock was on one of them.
Yeah, exactly. He's another one.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, he's this, he's that. But listen, give him a chance. He might very well be whatever you think he is, but give him a chance. Listen to it. You might learn something.
Yeah. Most recent, there's so many, mate. To be fair, man, he is incredible and a lot of inspiration. I always think that like Stephen Bartlett would make an incredible coach. I don't know if he already does coaching. He probably already does, but
he would.
The questions he asked.
I think he could provide more value by doing what he's doing now, because it would most likely to be to individuals. But I think he does. I'm sure he spoke about that before, that he coaches individuals. I think it's for free as well.
Yeah. Because the questions they ask, because that's all. I mean, especially coaching in business, to inspire the levels of self-discovery to actually go on and do the things that you need to do. Like the questions they ask definitely remind me more of a coach or a therapist or one of the sessions. I don't know what her name was. I can go back and read How to Win Friends and Influence People. But one of the episodes he had on was a woman that was speaking about like how she believed that it was like, oh, I don't need to spend £300 now on a therapy session because I've been on this, because the levels of self-discovery that he gets you to, it's incredible.
That is incredible. He studied that. He's not naturally, people look at him and think, oh, he's naturally this amazing thing. He's went for a lot of work to get there.
Absolutely, mate. No, I couldn't agree more. And the last book you've got in there is the Small Book of Common Sense Investing.
Yeah.
Is that how it's titled?
Yeah. That's how it's titled. It's an incredible book. Listen to it, read it, whatever you like. I listen to the audiobook. If you don't have an understanding of investing and why you should do it, listen to this book. It's so simple. It's common sense. You should be investing. And people think, oh, I'll never be a millionaire, I'll never be this. Not that you need to be, but it's relatively simple. In fact, it's very simple. Not easy, but it's very simple. So I would highly recommend it, because your future depends on what you do now.
Yeah.
So look into it from our investing perspective, not just money, time. You can pick up so many things from this.
Whenever you think about, because most people, when they think about why they don't invest, because they believe they've not got enough money, or that they've not got enough spare money at this current time to even think about what would be the first initial steps for someone like that you'd advise.
Look into it. Compound interest. Search in compound interest. Understand you could put, if you're in your early 20s, doesn't matter if you're in your early 30s, whatever, 40s, whatever, put money away. Compound interest will take care of it. Believe me. You don't need to understand everything to do with the stock market or whatever you're investing in, whatever type of market it is. Obviously, the stock market's one of the most liquid, so you would assume that somebody would be doing that long term. So yeah, I would just read into it a little bit. You'll understand the possibilities, like it is with anything. As soon as you understand the possibilities and what compound interest brings from putting away £50 a month, you'll be blown away. Yeah.
No, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely, man. And that comes to the fact that we've covered pretty much everything that we planned on covering, mate. And it was it's lived up to what my thought process of what it was going to be and why I wanted to get you on in the first place, because people deserve to have the opportunity to think in the way in which you think. And I believe that when you think about your levels of fulfillment and the way in which you enjoy life, anyone that is listening to this that maybe feels like they aren't necessarily enjoying life, or they aren't necessarily doing the things that they want to do, or they believe that it's not possible, it can just start with one form of learning and try to just understand more about how people think the way in which they do, and apply it to whatever it is that you actually want to do, whatever you're passionate about, because there's so much opportunities now.
Yeah, exactly. It's as simple as just exploring it. Exploring any slight passion that you feel, explore it.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more, mate. And wherever you're listening, whether it's on Spotify or YouTube, make sure you subscribe, follow, ring the bell. And thank you to Paul once again for letting us use the studio.
Some gaff in here, isn't it?
Definitely is, mate. Definitely is. But yeah, thank you for coming on, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
I appreciate your time. Really enjoyed it, and I hope somebody got some value from this. And if you did, I'd be happy to discuss anything with anyone. So yeah, thank you.
No worries, man. There'll be links down below in the description to Conor's Instagrams and platforms and LinkedIn and stuff like that if you want to connect with him. Mine's been there as well. But yeah, no, it's been awesome, Conor, mate.
Excellent. Sure has, brother. Good stuff.